I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Education for the School District of Baraboo to order for Monday, January the 9th, 2012, with roll call. Mr. Borkenhagen. Here. Mr. Cummings.
Here.
Mr. McNevin.
Here.
Mr. Meering.
Here.
Mr. Mortimer.
Here.
Mr. Vidro.
Here.
And Bodak here. Continue with the pledge, which is behind the screen by the clock.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would entertain a motion that it be resolved the Board of Education approve the minutes of the December 12th, 2011 meeting as printed.
Second.
Motion by Borkenhagen, second by Cummings. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to D on the agenda, which is the determination of the order for board candidate names on the spring election. There will not be a primary, so this would be determining the positioning for the April general election. I'd like to have Board Clerk Mr. Cummings come and help with the names. So the first name drawn would be the first name on the ballot.
Ray Borkenhagen.
First name is Ray Borkenhagen. Here, name it some.
I can't see anybody killing somebody. Mo Riley.
Second name is Mo Riley.
What
Feel
are
the
you doing
suspense.
with it, Hank? Clean up.
Suspense for Sean.
I think the fix was in.
So again, the position on the ballot would be Mr. Ray Borkenhagen, Mo Riley, and Sean McNevin for the April general election.
The last show in here.
Thanks, Mr. Cummings.
Yeah. There you go.
Brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled correspondence. I have none. Any other board members with correspondence?
Yeah, I've got some correspondence. I definitely got a pile here. I'll start off with the political. WISNET, I wrote some letters to some of our legislators. There's some legislation out there regarding WISNET and giving it another year extension. And Luther Olson and Dale Schultz are both going to be sponsors of that legislation. Fred Clark wrote a letter, and he is not going to sponsor the legislation for WISNET. He feels that the legislation doesn't go far enough. He would like to see that there would be no cutoff time for it. So those are, but he's still very supportive of WISNET. I received a letter from a parent regarding Jack Young Middle School, and very responsive administration from Mr. Gunnell and Mr. Harris regarding a crosswalk issue that she had. And then I have multiple correspondence from parents and concerned citizens regarding the Gifted and Talented program and advocating that we support that program. So that is my correspondence for this evening.
Thank you. Any other board members with correspondence? Any administrative correspondence?
I received a proclamation from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction regarding Wisconsin's adult school crossing guards. And we today, Molly organized a nice breakfast and recognition activity for our school crossing guards. We had several administrators in attendance just to show the appreciation for the work that they do every day for our students.
Thank you. Any other additional correspondence? Hearing none, I'd like to move on to public viewpoints. Do we have anybody that's here for public viewpoints tonight? Any public viewpoints? Any public viewpoints? Hearing none, I'd like to move on to 4, which is staff recognition, and I'm going to turn it to Dr. Ritzenthaler. We have educational assistants from each of our buildings with us here tonight, and Dr. Ritzenthaler would like to have a little presentation for them.
As Mr. Vodak just stated, we do have a number of special education assistants with us tonight that we'd like to recognize their efforts and hard work and honor them for the work that they do. The board did previously receive copies of the exact nominations for these assistants that came from the teachers and staff whom they work with every day. We have, and I'll call everybody up in just a second, we have Joellen Anstedt from North Freedom, Jennifer Bachman from East, Susan Burrows from West, Lisa Brandhagen from Alberman Elementary, Matt Dutton from the middle school, he's not able to be with us here tonight, Elaine Parsons from GLW, and I'm going to try really hard, Julia, forgive me, Yulia Yankovskaya. How did I do? Mrs. Poland, right? Okay. Well, thank you for being here with us tonight. Instead of reading all of the nominations, and people had wonderful, wonderful things to say about you, I thought I would share just a few phrases that really describe these individuals. Respected by staff and respects students, improves the learning environment, kind, conscientious, resourceful, empathetic, positive attitudes that are contagious, good team player, friendly, supportive, cares about students and their well-being, extremely patient, even in challenging situations. So overall, these individuals have really worked above and beyond expectations to get to know their students on an individual basis, and I think probably to sum it up, to do whatever it takes to make sure that those students are successful in our schools. So I am proud to recognize Joey, Jennifer, Susan, Lisa, Matt, Elaine, and Yulia on behalf of the Board of Education, the administrative team, teachers, and students. Thank you for the important work and contributions that you make to our district every day. And I do have a few certificates, if you would come up. I won't make you sing or talk or anything, I promise. And let's see if I can get these all right. First we have Lisa. Congratulations and thank you. Elaine. Thank you, Elaine, because I've worked with her for many years. We have Joey. Thank you, Joey. Thank you. Get one too. Thank you.
Can I pass some along?
And Jennifer from East. Thank you, Jennifer, for coming. And Yulia, thank you very much.
And thank you to Dr. Ritzenthaler for helping highlight with that staff recognition, and for all of those of the staff that were here tonight. Thank you for your hard work. Brings us to the continuous school improvement portion of the agenda. First up, we have Mr. Reuter for the BELC program update, which is otherwise known as 4K.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to spend a few minutes together tonight. I'm pulling in some resources in the presentation tonight. We're going to start with a short YouTube video that gives a brief synopsis of why we invest in four-year-old kindergarten, and then I'll review the a recent news release from DPI. We'll look at our Belt Parent Survey results that was given out in December, and then we'll hear some testimonials from some of our real live four-year-old kindergarten parents tonight as well. So if Mike would crank up that YouTube, and the parents are welcome to come have a seat up in this row here, that'd be great.
You can also sit on the floor cross-legged.
This is my fourth birthday. I'm sleeping at my aunt's this month. I don't know when my dad's coming home, but I'm hungry and I miss him. This is my fifth birthday. This is my first day of kindergarten. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm unprepared. Because I didn't get the right start. I'm twice as likely to be in special education. 30% more likely to never go to college. 70% more likely to be arrested for a violent crime. Become a teen parent. Drop out of school. Never hold a job. Spend the rest of my life in poverty. Every morning, my dad and I brush our teeth and do breakfast together. We have our own place now, and I know we'll always be together. This is my first day of kindergarten. I'm rested, I'm eager, I'm confident, I'm curious, I'm prepared. I'm ready. I am your future. Change the first 5 years, and you changed everything. Anyone interested in investing?
Thank you. So, again, DPI sent out a bulletin in December. I have some flyers, made copies for those that didn't receive it or don't have a copy tonight. I trust board members have it among their packets. If you're so interested, I'll do all some share. You may recall that it's about 3 years ago that we first started the discussion of implementing 4-year kindergarten in Baraboo, and we joined the initial class of 2009-2010 implementation. As we talked about things and making the decision whether or not to jump forward with 4-year kindergarten, we cited that at the time there was 319 districts. About nearly 75% of the districts in the state have opted at that time to participate in 4-year kindergarten. Now, that number's up to 368, nearly 90% of the districts in the state now implement or offer 4-year kindergarten. And again, that's designed to be an optional program for parents. It's not mandated by any district, and no district mandates its attendance. But that many districts and that many families now are participating from, again, as we were talking, 33,000 students back 3 years ago. Now it's 46,000 students. And the release outlines the merits or the rationale for 4-year kindergarten, and that many studies have concluded that kids will perform better at elementary and beyond with a high-quality preschool experience, that there's less of a likelihood for kids to need special education or extra services, that there's a higher graduation rate, and less kids end up in prison when they've had high-quality preschool experience. We're part of the districts in the state of those over 300 that offer 4K. About 110 offer a community approach to 4-year kindergarten, where a given district will partner with daycares, private preschools, and as a team present services to students. And that's what we do nearly exclusively in Baraboo. Versus the other option is somebody's got an empty room in their school and they're going to hire some teachers and they're going to offer 4-year kindergarten. And the community approach has many advantages, some of which include empowering the local providers and as a team enhancing or increasing the quality of the preschool experience and perhaps the child care experience throughout the child, reducing the number of transitions that students would have to make, going from an elementary school to a daycare position, and decreasing the amount of transportation that was potentially necessary if the child's staying in the same place all day. They don't need to be bused from one place to another. We, in Wisconsin, I'll remind you that we've been in the business of 4-year kindergarten since Wisconsin became a state, and that our state constitution calls for school districts to offer services to children beginning at the age of 4. And again, we're in the handout, there's a whole list of the 300 and some districts that do it, and then they provided a nice map to give you a pictorial of where we sit and our neighbors providing 4-year kindergarten. Now, there tends to be a few little pockets out there, but as that map depicts, the vast majority, nearly 90% of districts are now in the business of 4-year kindergarten. Those that aren't have never been. So there isn't yet a district that has started 4-year kindergarten and dropped it. And again, the merits, were briefly described, as well as, financially, districts find with the current formula and how it's supported that after the 3-year rolling enrollment experience, that it benefits districts financially as well. And we're nearing that point in time in our district as well. In the handout, I gave you a rundown of who's who in the Baraboo Early Learning Cooperative, and we'll take advantage of some of our teachers here tonight and we'll have them introduce themselves. And they're welcome to join us up here a little bit, be available for questioning. And after they're done, we'll turn it over to parents, and I'll brief you a little bit on the survey. But teachers, introduce yourselves, please, and tell us where you work as well.
I'm Emma Steinhorst, and I teach 4K at Baraboo Daycare in the morning.
I'm Angela Valley, and I teach 4K at St. Clair Child Care Center, and then I travel down to East Elementary.
I'm Deb Benson, and I teach AM and PM 4K at the renewal site.
I'm Chelsea Carmody. I teach at Children's Day Center in the morning and then up here at the high school in the collaborative effort in the afternoons.
And I'm Jennifer Vale, and I teach AM and PM 4K out at Sunshine.
We've continually surveyed parents, and we again did so this last parent-teacher conference round, and the results were provided to you through. This was the first time we went with the Survey Monkey process, but it was similar in its result. We asked if parents were satisfied with the spring pre-registration, summer registration, open house, and 97% said they were satisfied or very satisfied. We asked if parents were satisfied with what and how their children were learning in the Bell program, and 100% said they were very satisfied or satisfied of those that responded to the survey. Now, I don't claim that we've arrived. We have a lot of areas to grow and improve our programming, but these results give us good indication that we're on the right track and that we're making positive steps forward. So we're pleased with those results. We asked about our calendar and our schedule, if people were satisfied with that, and again, 93% said they were. And some of the comments, they allude to wishing it was 5 days a week versus 4 days a week, or perhaps a longer session. We asked if parents were satisfied with communication, and again, 97% said they were very satisfied or satisfied. So we were pleased with those results. We hope to learn from some of the more specific input that people provided as well. And we do that through a survey, but we also do that through conversations among ourselves and certainly conversations with parents as well. I'm going to turn it over to some of our parents that were kind enough to come tonight and share their time and perhaps some of their experiences of their children in the kindergarten. They'll introduce themselves by name, give a brief description of where their child attends, and then give you a short perspective of what they have experienced. So you're up first.
Can I use my paper?
Yes,
Otherwise
by
I
all
don't
means.
remember
You're all good.
Hi, my name is Jose Brewer. My son attends Sunshine Playhouse with Miss Jennifer Vale over there. He has been in daycare before and has started 4K this year since he was turning 5 in November, so he missed the cutoff by only 2 months. The first thing I wanted to say about the BELC, the 4K program, is that I like the way they pick their teachers, because the teachers spend most of their days with the children, with our children. They help mold them and shape their character, and they help the kids solve their problem by giving them ways to do so. So you have to pick really good teachers to be able to, for them to be able to deal with the children like that every day. Also, I like that they give the children responsibilities and choices throughout the day to pick what they want to do, and also, my son has to put his name up on the board when he gets to school so that the teacher knows that he's there. And I think it's a good way for him to start learning things, you know. Also, they evaluate each child to determine where they need help to be ready for kindergarten, and they develop activities for every particular kid to be able to work on. And I like that it gives them social interaction that they might not otherwise get, and it helps them learn to behave in a group. It slowly teaches the children to be ready to follow a schedule through play, and they learn rules at the same time. And then the teachers to the kid ratio is nice for one-on-one. If someone needs special attention, they're there to give it. They're able to give it, unlike in a daycare setting where the ratio is a little bit higher, I think. And they also get to work on individual needs of every kid that way. and also gives a chance to the kids who turn 5 too late to get ready and practice for kindergarten and keep them interested in learning. And by offering new challenges, and they might not get that in daycare because they're restricted on what they can teach before they start school. Worked in daycare for 11 years. Somehow you can't push them too much on the daycare, but once they pass 4K, at least you're able to teach them things and keep up with them. And sometimes they don't get to learn it at home, either because parents are tired at night because they worked all day, or because they just can't do it. So it's nice for them to have the opportunity to learn with teachers that are great and that are there for them. That's it.
Thank you. My name is Sandy Dent, and I've been a stickler for 4K for a long time. My son went to Golden Apple. I don't know if any of you remember Golden Apple down by the old Culvers. He was in the pre-kindergarten, pre-kindergarten and pre-kindergarten, and that did wonders for him. So I was excited to hear that my 4-year-old daughter, who does have a few learning issues, was able to enter the 4K program, and she has done so well since she started this program. She can write her name, she knows her colors. She does have a few issues now and then, and Mrs. Benson, who is in the renewal area, her and Mrs. Thomas just do wonders with my daughter. I mean, they know how to handle her emotional issues at times. And every time she comes home, she's just happy, and when she's on her way ready for school, she's like a little excited puppy at the door just waiting to get in. And you know, watching these kids all together, she's learning to share, she's learning, you know, the structure of kindergarten. You know, when they hit kindergarten, we drop them off and run, you know, and they're learning that, okay, mom can't stay with me or dad can't stay with me today. They're learning that, and they love it. You know, they go in there and they put their name down, or they take their coats off and check their name, then write their name, and it's amazing. I think we are all, as parents, blessed to have these wonderful teachers teaching our children, our 4-year-old kids, because they are doing so well with them. And I am actually proud to know that I live in the town of Baraboo my whole life and have this option for not just me, but these parents here and every parent forthcoming. I mean, I think it's a blessing. It's amazing.
My name is Tiffany Biernka, and my son goes to the St. Clair's program, and this is my first child in the school district, so it's all new to me. I enjoy the community-based part of it, being a working mother with a varied schedule. It takes a little of the pressure off, knowing that I don't have to figure out transportation midday. He was in a in-home daycare for most of the year, so I think it's great that he's starting to learn, like Dale said, structure and scheduling. He's always been very eager and loved learning new things, and as an adult we forget how to break things down into a 4-year-old's thinking process and brain, and these teachers do that and help us as parents learn how to do that. My son comes home and talks about projects and this and that, and it helps me figure out what to do to help him learn at home, because he's educating me as to how they do it at school. So I enjoy that aspect of it, and he loves to learn and is eager to go to school, which the first couple weeks he was a little apprehensive. So I feel now that that's a hurdle that we hopefully don't have to jump over quite as far next year.
My name is Kara Traxler, and my husband Rob is also here. We have 4 children, and our youngest, she's the first one to go to 4K, and very excited that she has some special needs that aren't really being met because it's all in one place. She goes to the early childhood 4K in the afternoons, and her office therapists are there. She has an early childhood teacher and extra assistants there, and Mrs. Valley is awesome. So.
Thank you.
Julie's made some great strides this year, and we're really thankful.
Sorry.
Yeah, I don't blame
I feel that I have a daughter 5 years old and my son's 4, and they both went to Miss Chelsea's 4K class. I feel that 4K should continue because it gives my son structure and discipline. I strongly feel my son wouldn't be ready for kindergarten if it wasn't for 4K. Also, I believe his home life has gotten better. He shares better with his siblings, and before 4K we tried reading him books, and he didn't really want anything to do with it. Now he brings us books, wanting to read, wants to do activities. So I believe by being in 4K around others his age makes him want to read and learn. And I have a daughter who's currently in kindergarten, so I see the stuff they're working on, and honestly I really don't think my son and others like him would be ready. These children need the basics like dancing, singing, playing with blocks. Not that that's all they do, but just to get them ready to be in a class type setting to sit and want to just pay attention. I think 4K is good for kids that don't have the type of parents to read to them, play games, color paint, or even just play with them. Nowadays, both parents have to work just to pay bills and get by, unlike in the past where the father would work to support the family. So a lot of the time, the child doesn't get that one-on-one play and activity time. And with the class sizes being smaller, it helps to form a quality education for our children. I think 4K is a good experience for kids to do exciting projects, explore a learning environment, and go on educating field trips. The earlier they get into school, the better off they're going to be. That 1 year could really help develop their minds in future, I believe. One of the many things I feel help my kids well in 4K is the extension activities. I feel it helped them to understand the things they were working on in the classroom. Plus, I believe kids are a lot happier when they can be around kids their own age and have someone to play with. It's as good as it is for the kids, it is for the parents. I love how we can have that time after school to discuss with the teacher. It also really helps build our relationship and trust. Overall, I just think 4K is a really good thing for the future of our children.
Hi, my name is Steve Hess. I have a daughter in the Children's Day Center with Miss Chelsea, who is great. Can't say enough good things about her. The kids do great there. I'm a little bit jealous because Leah, our daughter, picks up much better from Miss Chelsea than she does at our house. But it's done great thing for ours. I'm looking forward to our little guy Noah getting into it. I'm also on the board at Children's Day Center, and it's actually been a real financial boon for our center. We've actually, that partnership has really worked well for us. It's filled up some of the areas in our center. It essentially made us a draw center for bringing kids into it. So it's really worked out well for us. Our board is really happy with it. If we had more room, we'd have a PM, but we just don't have the room to do it. But the Children's Day Center board is really happy with the program. As a parent, I'm really happy with it too.
So we'd open it up to any questions board members might have of any of us.
First and foremost, thank you all. None of this would be possible without your insistence and your expertise. Thank you very much.
I have questions or points or whatever. One thing that just came out in the last week or so was Read to Lead project. Bipartisanship is a difficult word in Wisconsin, but this is one issue where Democrats and Republicans, conservatives and liberals have come together, and they believe in this project. And one of the key components of the Read to Lead project to make sure that everybody is up at grade level reading by 3rd grade is 4-year-old kindergarten. And one of the things they talk about in there is literacy and the components of 4K, how that plays into it. I've heard the term play with a purpose, but how are we supporting these learners so that they're really going to be moving down the road in the literacy components? Jim or one of the teachers that they could share with that?
Deb, do you want to pick up on that? Deb is our reading specialist that served our district, who became a 4-year-old kindergarten teacher when the opportunity came up, so she's our resident expert.
Okay. Well, I think we're all experts in that field. Our day is surrounded with literacy from the time the children walk into the room until they leave. Our rooms are full of labeled things, which is the very basics of literacy. But also our small group sessions where during playtime we pull children in smaller groups, can be 1 to 4 in a group, depending on our activity, where we can meet the child at their level. Currently, in my classroom this year, I have children who are struggling to learn their letters, let alone the next step of sounds. But I also have a couple children in my room this year who have been tested by our district reading specialists who have come to the site and are reading at a 2.5 grade level.
Wow.
So halfway through. So we have to meet those needs of literacy in our classrooms in many, many different ways. We do that through our small groups, through our literacy, through our circle time, where we develop literacy in many different ways. As a whole, we're constantly looking at our curriculum, and we've studied a very lengthy book. We just finished it on Fontes and Pinnell literacy, trying to improve ways to bring literacy into our classroom. We're hoping on Friday the 20th to take a trip as a group to Milwaukee to find out about the Emerge literacy program and how that works in the Milwaukee Public Schools 4-year-old kindergarten program. And so we as a group are really working on solidifying our curriculum completely around literacy, because we know that's where our district goals are as well. So in a nutshell, or very quickly, that's some of the things we're doing. I don't know if somebody else wants to speak to that question.
I'll just reiterate Doug's point that it's a bipartisan supported program. You know, that the tough times in our pre-K through 12 programming and financially, but they haven't messed with the 4-year-old kindergarten formula, or that we have same access to that as everybody else. And our students are counted the same, and even the startup grant has been maintained. You know, we took advantage of that, and now other districts are, even the remaining 10% still have access to that. They reduced that formula by 10%, but we were expecting it to be wiped out. You know, but there's that much value still laid in it to get everybody else on board, if they so choose, that they continue to support 4-year-old kindergarten in our state legislature and within our governor's office too.
Will there be an opportunity to modify the curriculum based on our own feedback from our own teachers, such as the first grade level saying this is what we're seeing and this is?
We did survey our kindergarten teachers last year.
Yeah, we kind of had that qualitative survey.
Right. There is certainly that opportunity, and yes, even though there are some package curriculums, we certainly would expect to have, freedom to pick and choose what's going to be best for Baraboo and our students here. Yeah.
And I also want to thank the parents. It is greatly appreciated that you take the time out of your evening and take the courage to come and present to us and validate the program that we think is so valuable. And Miss Lee, I know that they don't always sing and dance and play with blocks, but my daughter's in the middle school, and her favorite 3 things to do are sing, dance, and play with blocks. There's really nothing wrong with it at all.
I'm still there too. One other question I have is regarding, and again, pre-K I believe is for all students, but we've had some parents talk about special needs children, and as we've gotten this program in place, and we've had, obviously, special needs are an integral part of it, they're inclusive. How is that, and again, you're in a unique position because you're also our kindergarten principal. How has that seemed to have been playing out in the transition from pre-K to kindergarten and down the line?
Well, let me just quickly touch on the special education aspect. We've gone from, in the most recent history in Baraboo, we had 4 sessions of early childhood special education, serving kids 3, 4, perhaps just turning 5. Now we have 2 sessions of early childhood special education, self-contained classrooms, 1 morning session at East, 1 morning session at West. And we still have the same amount of students, if not more, but we're servicing those kids in a more natural setting where they have a chance to learn alongside with and make friends with typically different kids. And we're seeing everybody benefit. We're seeing the special education students, primarily kids come in with language disabilities and sometimes social delays, and we're seeing especially those kids with those challenges really do well with all the modeling that they have access to with all their age peers. In each of our special education programs are great programs, and they've tried to incorporate peer models in them, but it just isn't quite the same as having the majority of students who are so verbal and are stimulating conversation and language development. So that's been huge. We are pushed by law, and we are pushed by our own professional judgments and what we think is right to pursue that, and it's been really rewarding to see that benefit students so well here in Baraboo. The other portion of your question or comment was how we think it's helping in kindergarten. Sure, I spend half my time with Belk and half my time with 5-year-old kindergarten at the West Kindergarten Center, and we certainly believe it is helping. Now, there are still kids that come in to 5-year-old kindergarten that are a challenge. But we think we are moving them along further down the road than what they would have been without a 4K program behind them. So, we have all the, nationwide, research that supports it and the merits of it. As the program matures and as those kids go into second and third grade, then we'll start seeing perhaps some differences with our MAP scores and with our WKCE scores, but that's a little early in the game yet to decide. But our kindergarten teachers, I know, appreciate it. And I know they want the emphasis to remain on social and language development. That it's a bonus when kids know their ABCs and their sounds when they start kindergarten, but they really hope for is for kids to have an ability to sit through stories and to participate and learn in a cooperative way. And that's really will continue to be the focus of the Belk program.
I think
we'll work on those other things.
Jim, I'm sorry, I think that's a very important point to reiterate, that the objective of early education is to prepare for something bigger than just academic success. And I think you parents in all of your speeches have indicated how you see blossoming in your children their social capabilities, their cooperative capabilities, and they're learning so much more of many of the things that are equally important to academic success. They're learning how to live together with each other, with their parents, with their siblings, more or less, and to move forward.
I went to kindergarten at West School with Mrs. Grimstead. I'm not sure if anybody here remembers her, but she was the kindergarten teacher of all kindergarten teachers. But when I went to school, I wish there was a Belk program when I was young. I don't know if anybody of you know Bucky Dent, but he was my dad. I've been in this town my whole life, and I'm proud of this town. And the program that they've started is amazing. It gets our kids ready for not just kindergarten, not just first grade, second grade, but it starts them on their path. Not the path of destruction, thank God, but the path of where they need to go. And it's not even just the teachers, it's Mr. Bruder, Ms. Fitzgerald, Crystal, the school board. We're all participating in all of our kids learning in some form or another. And I'm proud. I am proud of all of my fellow Baraboo residents. I am. I can't help it.
How many students do you have this year?
170. We had 170 last year, throughout the year, more or less, and that's what we have right now. Now, we were a little disappointed, to tell you the truth, and certainly surprised by the number of kindergarten kids that showed up. We would anticipate, generally, districts that offer 4-year-old kindergarten, by the end of the second, certainly the third year, they have about 90% participation. We don't really expect everybody to come. It's not necessarily for everybody, but generally other districts have 90% by the end of the third year. We had 170 students last year, and then we had 237 kids show up for our 5-year-old kindergarten. So we're not at the 90% yet. So are we now? I don't know. It depends how many 5-year-old kindergartens show up, in the fall. But yeah, we have the same number this year as we did last year. Our first year we had about 132, 135 students.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you should put Sandy in charge of the marketing program.
Yeah, right. She sold me.
Thank you. I'm proud. I can't believe it. I think they need to visit a class of 4K just for the first week and see how the kids are running around, and then visit about 3 weeks later and see how they sit. It's amazing. It's amazing what they can do, I think. And that prepares them for kindergarten, where they actually need to sit all day and listen and do stuff. Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Again, I'd like to also say thank you for taking time out of your night to come and sit with us and share your experience and stories. And
We'd like to thank you for listening. It's important. It's very important
You're
to us
welcome.
as parents.
And Mr. Ritter, thank you for organizing it for us for tonight.
Thank you.
Brings us to the portion of the agenda entitled Gifted and Talented Program Updates, and we have Ms. Cushman to help us with that. And also, I want to, before I turn it over to you, I want to mention that I have had, over the course of the last couple months, and I didn't introduce them as correspondents, but I have had probably a half a dozen correspondents in support of the program and the opportunities and the option to move forward and expand. So with that, I would like to turn it over to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback, and I think that's really exciting news, because I think that for a number of years, GT has been kind of in the background, and we're trying to slowly bring it into the foreground and help folks understand what it's about and what our purposes are. I have two folks here tonight to present with me. Karen Aylesworth is a parent in the district. She has 2 children in the middle school. And Karen and I got to know each other last year when she came to talk with me about concerns she had about her daughter. And then we got talking about parent groups and things and what we needed to do to make sure that we were supporting gifted and talented in the district. And I mentioned to her that I had been trained as a SANG parent facilitator, which is supporting the emotional needs of the gifted. And Karen was so excited by that she went out and got trained too. And so this fall, we did a 10-week, well actually 9 with the snow day, session where we had a group of parents meet on a weekly basis to talk about supporting the emotional needs of the gifted. So that was a real positive experience for me. It was a small group, gave us the opportunity to kind of see how it felt to be a facilitator and to begin that process, but it was a powerful experience, I think, as a facilitator. Also, tonight we have Jennifer Peterson, who is a teacher at the middle school, and both Jennifer and Karen served on our Gifted and Talented Committee. We drew a group of folks together last year after I did the presentation for the board about GT, and we began work on our Gifted and Talented plan, because we had a plan that was pretty outdated and didn't really meet the needs of the students that we had in our district and didn't support what we wanted to have happen in our district. And so Jennifer also has been, the last 2 years, has taken a group of middle school students to the Leadership Conference, which is a program that is supported by the CISA 5 Gifted and Talented Coordinators organization. And so she gets to see that end of the spectrum as well. And so she sat through our Gifted and Talented group planning sessions and creating some of the documents that you have. Now, I know that Crystal made available to you through the Google Docs the draft of our plan. Again, this is a draft. We are still in the process of creating this plan, thinking about changes that are coming and changes that we anticipate. And so I want to talk you through a couple of the important pieces of the plan tonight, and then ask you to think about questions you may have. I'm also going to ask Jennifer and Karen to maybe speak a little bit about what we did as a group. So while I'm ready in the PowerPoint here, do you want to talk a little bit? Or?
I think Karen would love to. Well, I'm not alone in this. There's a lot of people here that have been really helpful, and I appreciate it. And there's been a lot of people, I think there's been kind of a groundswell of parents. Like, it wasn't me who invented this. I think little groups of us were kind of talking, you know, as parents talk about their kids, like how's school going and that. And we just thought that there really seems to be a need to address the kids at the other end of the spectrum. And I always kind of feel like I'm that commercial, like, don't hate me because I'm beautiful, like, don't hate me because my kid is smart. Like, you think, well, they don't have any problems, but they do. It's kind of, you know, I think my kids have read thousands of pages of books that have nothing to do with school but during school time, and I wish they could spend those hours kind of really expanding their knowledge in other ways also. So a lot of us got together, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be supportive teachers. We understand that the schools are under kind of a lot of, it doesn't look like it's fun to be a teacher or an educator now. And we're trying to be supportive, and we know money's tight, but I think there's a lot of ways to do this creatively without a lot of extra money, and we're here to support that. So thank you.
Well, I serve on the committee in multiple aspects, as far as like uniqueness of learners, I suppose you could say, or exceptionalities of learners. I'm a special education teacher, so I kind of get to know students as more as an individual, on an individual level. So I feel that I've kind of brought that to our committee, and with the process of being identified for GT programming and whatnot, it is, you know, there's assessments and observations of students and kind of where I interact with the group.
Good. So I want to thank those two folks for joining me tonight. Again, like I said, I wanted to just go through a couple of things that I think are important in the plan, and if you have a copy of the document, that's great. Otherwise, I have them here on the I think that the most important thing that we did as a group was to create a list of what our core beliefs were as a gifted and talented group, because I think we needed to kind of come together. We have folks from a lot of different places. As Molly said in our administrative meeting the other day, the group was pretty fluid. We had people who were able to come and then not able to come, and able to come and not able to come. So we tried to create some consistency among that group. And we developed this list of core beliefs that we feel are really important to show how we can move forward as a district. And this was kind of our most important point. And I'm really proud to say that the folks that we have here really kind of show the importance of this first thing. We believe it is crucial for all staff and community members to be given ongoing job-embedded training for supporting students identified as gifted and talented. And so we will build capacity to advocate for our gifted students, gifted and talented students through collaborative relationships between community, school, and family. And I think this is really important in what Karen said about the need for all of us to work together, that it's not a us against them kind of opportunity, but it's we are in this together, we're working together to make sure we're meeting the needs of our gifted students. We felt that we also wanted to make sure that we were ensuring gifted services for underachieving, twice exceptional gifted learners. And Jen talked about identification of all kinds of learners as gifted and talented. Sometimes students might be identified as special ed in one area, but also can be twice exceptional and listed as, or identified as gifted in another area. And so it's important for us to have that voice on our committee, and we are glad that she is there to support us in that. We thought that it was really important that we have a consistent and uniform method of identification for our gifted and talented students, and that area of identification included all of the 5 areas that the state statute reflects, and that those pieces also were, that we took pieces of information from a lot of different sources. We used testing data, we used information that we collected from parents, we used evidence-based data, and so we had a lot of different ways to evaluate whether a student is identified as gifted and talented.
Julie?
Yeah.
What do you mean by ensure gifted services for underachieving? What's that mean?
Well, sometimes, and we probably see this more at the high school and maybe even at the middle school, what we find are that students who may be identified as gifted and talented, or may be showing signs of gifted and talentedness, tend to lose interest in school because they spend a lot of time reading, or they spend a lot of time waiting for the other kids in the class to catch up. And so we are seeing that they are not necessarily meeting their potential because they're just waiting. And so when we talk about them as underachievers because they're not working up to their ability. And a lot of times what happens then is because they lose interest, they stop paying attention, they stop doing their homework. Maybe they don't see any relevance in the homework that they do because they already know it and they wonder why they're even bothering. And sometimes what happens then is those students become students at risk, and we end up with some of our most brightest students being the ones that are dropouts. And so, yeah.
High school dropouts have the same rate of gifted kids as other kids, so they're at the same risk for dropping out, and they probably just have a different path of getting there.
So it's not that all students who are considered gifted and talented or very bright automatically cruise through school and end up, at the highest level of achievement. A lot of times what happens is they lose out, and we lose them.
So if they're in the gifted and talent program, and then they lose interest, then you can, through gifted and talent programs, you can get them back up so they are higher achievers, is that correct?
Well, what we hope is not to have lost them. So what our plan is what our intention is to meet their needs where they are at the beginning, so that we're continuing to reach them at the level that they need, so that they don't have to sit and waste time in class reading while the other kids are going through. If you remember the last time we talked, I talked to you about how sometimes gifted and talented kids only need one repetition or one or two repetitions of material in order to learn something, where an average student might need 12 or 15 repetitions. And so if a gifted student goes through the learning process, gets it that first time it's taught, then they just kind of wait. And so what we're hoping is if we can provide programming for gifted students that helps them to continue to learn, even though they've already mastered what it is that we're teaching, then we can keep them engaged and keep them on task and on track to graduate and to be working to their potential. This piece is still a little controversial. As a group, we thought it was important to have a differentiated education plan for identified students. This might be a bit of a challenge, depending on how many students we identify, what our criteria are for identification, and what support we have in the district to provide for our students. Creating an identification plan for each student that's identified might be a challenge. So when we talk about whether this is a plan to be adopted, right now we're thinking, well, maybe we need to take a look at that. And I don't know, Lori, if you want to talk a little bit about that, or?
What we talked about administrative team is that within the gifted educational circles, some school districts will opt to not use a differentiated educational plan. I guess it depends on the context and culture of the district. The key thing I think that's important is that whatever the needs are of the students, so that they make a year's worth of growth in a year's worth of time, is what the district does. So whether there's a formal plan that is a DEP, which the controversy comes with, it reminds people of an IEP, which is funded and has federal legislation behind. We don't have those same kind of supports in the gifted educational services from our federal government or state. And so it's just it depends on what our district values and what we will do to make sure that students get what they need.
It's just that we won't formalize it, potentially.
Right.
But there will be a thought process and a philosophy in each classroom that this kid is going to grow at a minimum of 1 year.
Right, at a minimum of 1 year. I think the challenge comes not so much in having a formal plan, but the amount of human resource time it will take to implement a DEP for each student that could be potentially identified. I think that's the challenge.
Sure.
I think it's also important that we've noted that there are many different ways in which young people can excel. And there are intellectual pursuits and there are artistic pursuits.
Leadership.
And so differentiation for me really is about recognizing where a child's interests are and using that as the basis of building a plan to help them grow and develop, which would incorporate much of the academic work, but positioned from an area that they're excited and love. You can teach physiology to someone who's interested in dance because that's their instrument. You can teach physics to a skateboarder because they will want to know how to do that triple flip and why can't they do it. Wherever there is a desire and an interest as educators, I think that's where we get an aha for how to create something.
Right.
So in terms of gifted and talented, it's across the board the same way as our special needs children have multiple areas, so do our gifted and talented.
I think some of the things that we've talked about though are that we want to not make it just whatever they want to learn, because we have requirements as a district to meet standards and to make sure that we're following that path for those students too. So, you know, helping them to expand. If physiology is the course that they're taking, then how can we help them expand with that course and provide relevant curriculum, which is actually the next. Have meaningful curriculum, so that it's not just, well, whatever will keep them busy and out of my hair, or you know, so that I don't have to worry about them, but so that the curriculum we provide for them helps them to move forward in whatever area that they are working at that time. Back one more though, another thing that we thought was important, and I guess mostly I thought this was important, was to conduct an annual program evaluation at the district level. This is an example from the DPI website of what a program evaluation might look like. And it just gives us kind of a template to work from. So when I'm deciding whether my program is effective, this is actually a tool that I've been looking at for a couple of months, and I just today noticed it on the DPI website, so I'm thinking they've taken from some other places and used it. But it kind of helps us to think about where we are and where we want to go next with our program. And if you look at the different parts of it, kind of in general, how are we doing? What is our identification process? And how does our programming support what we need for our students? And so those are the topics that I think, you know, are really important for us to look at as a district. And like Lori said, our goal is for our students to have increased academic achievement, whether that's through differentiated instruction, compact curriculum, flexible student groups, but however we need to meet those needs. That's our goal. So, for our identification process, and like I said, all of this is in your plan document. I just kind of took the highlights. What we want to make sure we have in place is an identification process that allows for parent nomination, teacher nomination, and maybe even when we look at the high school, middle school level, student to self-nominate. And then we have a process through which we take a look at what we've collected, what the student has said about themselves, or what the teacher has said, or the parents have said, and we take a look at that and decide what we're going to do with that. So we have forms that we have to complete for parents and for teachers and for students that need. And then our process right now looks like we will have that process begin at each building level. And that will be part of our PST, our problem-solving team process, so that teachers can get together and think about what the needs of the student are and how they can best support the students within the classrooms and within the buildings. And then if there is an additional support that's needed, if we feel that the needs can't be met in the regular classroom or with the regular curriculum or regular program, then we need to take it to that next level. So our PST process then would be to involve the gifted and talented coordinator. Right now, when we look at the information that we collect, I use our Fountas and Pinnell data, I use our MAP data, our WKCE data, our pre and post assessments for math, which this year is the first year we've actually required that teachers do, so I think that is really making a difference for teachers to understand, which kids are actually already mastering the curriculum before they actually begin. I use a SAGES 2 screener, which is an assessment tool that helps me to kind of get another piece of information about students. I also use this Scales for Identifying Gifted Students. I'll just show you a copy of these. I need these back, so I don't have a lot of copies. The blue ones are a home rating scale. The green ones are a school rating scale. But this allows parents and teachers to share information about the learner. And then it allows me to take that information and compare it with a normal sample and a gifted sample and see where that student falls compared to other students. So that's just another piece of data that I use in identifying students. We may also use classroom data on portfolios or other projects or things that students do in the classroom that don't fall into these formal assessments. And then we develop a plan of action. So what are we going to do to meet the needs of these students? That might be through differentiation. And there are lots of different ways that we can differentiate in the classroom. It may be through grouping. We may do cluster grouping within the current classroom, or when we think about programming for the following year, we may decide, well, here's a group of 3 kids in this grade at this school who have similar abilities, similar learning styles. Let's group them together in one classroom with one teacher so that teacher can support the needs of those students. So different ways that we can meet their needs. This is Jennifer at our leadership conference. So do you have any questions about the plan?
How do you, or what do you believe to be the percentage of students? I mean, obviously, without having completed a bunch of the identifiers that you've talked about, do you have some guesstimate based upon nationwide averages, statewide averages, what the percentage of students we're talking about that would be potentially eligible for this program?
Well, I think that it really depends on what our core program looks like. And when we talk about gifted and talented, we really are looking at the same pyramid that we look at for RTI. So we should be able to meet the needs of 80 to 90% of our students in the regular curriculum with the kinds of things that we put in place, like differentiation and cluster grouping and those kinds of things. That doesn't mean that those students are probably going to need more than the regular classroom if we provide differentiation and we provide additional resources. They're going to need some additional things. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to need programming out of the classroom. And then probably 3 to 5% might need another tier beyond that. So then we might be talking about things like maybe some more of the additional things that we just talked about. It may be acceleration, it may be grade level acceleration, or of course subject acceleration. So if I have a student who's really taking off in math, and just in math, maybe is having the needs met in the regular curriculum with the regular things that are happening, but we just can't seem to meet that student's needs in math, then I might accelerate them to the next grade level, or maybe even 2 grade levels depending on the need of that student. So those are ways that we can can do that. And then the acceleration process may also be radical acceleration, whole grade acceleration, and that might be for a very, very small portion of the population. So I guess, you know, if we think about the percentage of students that may be identified for gifted and talented,
Be about 10 to 15% per grade level.
yeah.
And if it were more, like if we, as a district, we were seeing that we would be noticing more than that, then that means there's something wrong with our curriculum instruction and we need to increase the rigor to match the student needs.
Are you saying 10 and 15% of our students are gifted and talented?
Well,
Or would require additional
would
programming.
be under that umbrella of gifted and talented services, but that's something, and you bring up a very good point, and that's something I've taken criticism on perhaps presenting, but it, you know, if you look at experts across time and looking at gifted and talented populations, if we think about true giftedness, like Einstein giftedness, really in the whole world population, there's probably 1 to 2% of the entire population that's truly gifted. And I think one of the challenges we'll have as a district moving forward is, do we want to use that term even, gifted and talented, because it's a label? You know, so we should talk about that moving forward if that's the terminology we want to use, or if we want to talk about high potential individuals or high ability achieving students. So.
Really, you shouldn't think of it as something separate. If you look at the
Right.
continuum of skills and learning that students that are taking place across our schools, you've got some of the struggling students in specific areas that we've been addressing, but you also have the other end of the continuum. So the key really, and I know Julie, I don't know if you're going to mention this yet, is the professional development for our teachers so that they recognize when students need something different. And that the needs have to be addressed foremost in the classroom. And then we need to look above and beyond what we need to provide for those students. So it's not something separate, really. It's just that continuum of learning and skills. And that can differ from time to time, and grade level to grade level.
Or class to class. I mean, I had the opportunity the last week to go to a couple of classes, or groups of teachers, and observe some professional learning and communities. And in one of them was a math, and some of the kids didn't quite understand. So they had groups for those kids. But then there were some kids that already knew it. So they had a separate group for them. And so, and I'm sure even in that group there's a difference of learning. But I think we all have to go back wherever that kid is, whether they're at the bottom or at the top or the middle. We're dedicated to make sure that each child that comes through our system grows, and that's what we have to be dedicated to.
And we really have to approach it on a district-wide basis.
Yes.
Otherwise, the quality of their education is really dependent upon that individual teacher and the skills that individual teacher
Yes.
has. And so, you know, I've heard from many parents that last year my child had a wonderful experience. The teacher was intuitive, knew what to do, knew how to challenge my child. Following year, that didn't happen. And that's why the professional development is so important for our staff. And we do have a 3-year plan coming forward here quickly.
And yes, and actually, just to put a plug for what we do have coming forward, we've collaborated with the Wanakee School District, and they're sending out 2 of their, they call them pathway coordinators, to come out and provide gifted and talented instructional strategies on our early release day. So we have 30 staff members who've signed up to participate in a cohort with them and learn some strategies using a book study. And we'll hope to continue that kind of collaboration moving forward and look for other opportunities across the state for our staff.
And I think it's important to think about, you know, as we plan for the future, if we look at, okay, so we have those 30 folks and we use those 30 folks as kind of the core, what is our expectation going to be for the following year, or for the other 200 and some staff members that we have? Because again, like Crystal said, we don't want to have it just be kind of by chance that you get a teacher who knows what to do. We want to make sure that all of our teachers have the knowledge that they need in order to meet the needs of those students.
I would think also that part of this is systematic. For example, it's not just the classroom teacher, although that is appropriate, but we need to have systems not only for identifying, but also then for moving kids to teachers that specialize in that particular area outside of that individual classroom. I have some excitement about the block plan in the middle school as a wonderful opportunity to experiment with looking at the differentiation regarding both math and literacy to promote exactly what we're trying to do with this program. To be able to bring kids together that are in need and to get the right support, kids that are, quote, in the average developmental scheme, and kids that are excelling. The block plan provides great opportunity for differentiation to begin that process.
I think that it also is important that, I mean, I think that's too where the staff development piece comes in, because if we're going to have that expectation that there's some fluidity there, so that folks have the ability to go to different places, then teachers have to have the knowledge to say that's okay, that I don't have to have them here to do my 8th grade curriculum because it's okay for them to maybe need something else than what I have. So I think that's a process, and it's not a tomorrow.
Yes, it's
Julie, could you go back one slide, please? Could you define, I might have missed it, the curriculum compacting and telescoping and what that means?
Sure. Curriculum compacting is a term that we use that, this is where we use pre-assessments and we find out what a student already knows. So if I'm going to do a math unit and I have a student who knows 90% of the curriculum that I'm about to teach, then I don't need to teach that student that because they already know it. They've shown that they know it. So I might quickly move through the 10% that they don't know and allow them to move ahead. So I'm compacting what it is that they already know. Or it may be that they learn at a quicker pace. And so maybe the percentage is less, maybe they know 60%, but they're going to have it, 3 days where my class is going to spend a week and a half on it.
Okay.
So I can compact that curriculum so that they get it faster.
Okay.
Telescoping is where I may have 2 separate courses that I'm teaching simultaneously. So I'm teaching maybe geometry and algebra at the same time. Or that's just an example of math. But so or 3rd grade and 4th grade math I'm teaching at the same time, covering those concepts together so that I can accelerate them forward to the next material. Okay. Because they're able to get it at that speed. So those are just examples of ways that we may differentiate.
How long does it take you to average to determine whether, let's say, a person going into 1st grade is gifted and talented, and then can you assume if they're gifted and talented in the 1st grade that they're going to be gifted and talented throughout their K-12?
Yeah, I get out my seeing I predict into the future. That's a really good question, Ed, because a lot of times when we look at students who are really advanced in the early grades, it may be because of the exposure they've had to the materials before. It may be that, I've got a kid in kindergarten who's reading, maybe that student spent a lot of time with their mom reading or their grandma reading, and it may be that will kind of level off. That's not always the case, and we have to really monitor that and pay attention to that and make sure that we're keeping track of that and providing opportunities for that student. We don't want to sit back and say, well, the rest of the kids will catch up, so therefore, we're going to just let it be. We want to meet them at their place, wherever they are. But
it's rare, too, that a child would be considered gifted across all areas, too. Usually there's an area or two where they really have very evident skills and strengths. So it's not across the board usually.
Yeah. There are some that are in the general academic, all across, they're great in just every subject. And then there are some that are identified in specific academic areas. So, other thoughts?
Yeah, Julie, include a policy on tuition payment for courses or programs not available within the district.
Right.
Don't we do that now?
We do for youth options.
So could this be
So that would be for,
considered the same thing, couldn't it, or no?
it could be for high school students, but there may be a situation where a student in middle school needs additional curriculum, maybe they've worked through, and I don't know, that's the example that I could think of. I don't know, Marie, if you have another thought about that.
I'm thinking about my past experiences. There's the Wisconsin Center of Academically Talented Youth in Madison. It's a not-for-profit organization, and they offer online courses to middle school students. And it used to be a practice in the state that some districts would pay half, and then the families would pay half. And our state is saying that's not acceptable, that really needs to be funded by the district.
Well, and I want to remind the board that we've finished our payments on the eSchool Consortium, so we have access to a lot of quality curriculum at the middle school level, well, actually elementary too. It's a matter of coordinating those efforts now. We still have that amount of funding
For
that
gifted?
was going toward just the curriculum in general, which was $40,000 a year. So, you know, those funds are still there. And this might be a good opportunity to expand those offerings at the middle school. But we need, again, the human resource piece. We need the staff responsible for teaching those courses and monitoring the students' progress, just like we have here at the high school.
We are doing some really interesting things at the middle school now with the block schedule. There are some math interventions taking place that really do focus to enrich the curriculum for our students who do seem to be gifted and talented, just on a classroom level. They're using that block time to really differentiate the instruction for students who have already mastered the skills that they're working on, or maybe are really talented in an area and really just need to press on or work above where we're currently working at. And then plus after school activities, for example, Builders Club. So if any of your students want to join, and that's more of a leadership area, which is one of the areas.
Speaking of shameless plugs.
And opportunities like that in forensics, Jane Brand, Teresa McCullough, just really looking to not only in the curriculum and in the classroom, but outside the classroom. So looking at all those areas of GT that we can really bring our students to really.
But those are all programs that benefit not only GT, but the general overall population.
Should benefit everyone.
But
Everyone.
it might be appropriate during the PST process to direct students that way.
Yes.
So if you have a student who's really, performing well in this area, but maybe doesn't know about that or doesn't have
Sure.
the opportunity, we can help to direct them that way so that they can participate in that, and that can be part of the program that's developed too. So, thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to the portion.
Is that a teacher in the back row or a really tall student?
He's not that tall.
He's not that.
It's you.
He can't see that far without his glasses. So.
Nice.
Moving on. Brings us to the portion of the agenda for the district technology update, and we have with us tonight Mr. Pellin, who is going to give us a snapshot of where we are, where we want to go, and how we're going to get there.
I'm really excited for the opportunity to come share with you, just due to the fact that we've made so many, I think, substantial changes in using technology in our school district, and how it's really impacted the classroom, our certain spaces, and the things that we do on a day-to-day basis. It's exciting to get to this point, to sit down and actually stop, grab some information, and really tell the story of how technology is impacting our schools. So hopefully, within this short 5-minute video, you'll kind of get to see not a snapshot of what's going on in our classrooms and our other spaces, but ultimately, again, how this huge system that we've put together really needs to function and maintain and operate to really support the needs of our staff and students. So that being said, I'm going to show you this about 5-minute video that we put together. And we'll have any questions.
Technology tools and resources are changing the landscape in the Baraboo School District. These resources are impacting the way we communicate, collaborate, and how we teach and learn. Within this short video, I will demonstrate the different components, concepts, and other resources used to create our 21st century schools. Wireless access is a key component to transparent use of technology resources in our learning spaces. We started building this mobile capacity in 2007 when we added 90 access points to our school buildings. Since we added this wireless technology, we have seen the use of mobile devices in our schools grow. Since its inception in 2007, we have added 680 mobile tech devices to our network. We are anticipating even more growth in the use of mobile devices in the future, so we are expanding to provide a more robust wireless infrastructure. We put an extensive amount of effort into creating these 21st century learning spaces. The technology in these areas simply need to work. The resources need to be transparent, easy to use, have adequate audio and video, be affordable and supportable. We have completely transformed 142 classrooms and other learning spaces in the past 4 years. Effective communication and collaboration is a key component to seamless use of technology in our schools. We recently launched Google Apps for Education to 450 staff and 2,500 students. This system allows our staff to easily communicate and collaborate with their colleagues and students in a rich, internet-based environment. Another key component to successful use of technology in schools is providing ongoing professional development opportunities for school staff. We need to continually expose our staff to the technology resources available and provide training for them on effective instructional technology strategies. We are working diligently to provide parents and other community access to school and district level news and information. We have used our website, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube accounts to upload current news, events, and other important information. Over 190 news articles have been posted to our website in the last 3 years. Our elementary schools have had multiple tech nights to showcase how technology is being used in our schools. A solid infrastructure is crucial to the success of an excellent technology program. We have many technology resources relying on this network. It is imperative to have a core network that is secure, solid, and reliable. The goal of our department is 100% uptime. We have recently completed some major upgrades and are now seeing the fruits of this investment. Having a solid support team is a cornerstone piece in the success of technology in the Baraboo schools. We have added many resources such as phone, email, and chat support to meet the ever-increasing support needs of staff, students, and community. If our users can get timely support to their technology needs, we have better success using the tools and resources in our district. Our team supports more than 4,500 tickets annually. Mobility, 21st century classrooms, collaboration, communication, professional development, community involvement, support and infrastructure are the pieces that all fit together to weave this rich, complex, engaging 21st century learning environment. As we continue to move forward, we need to keep our focus on maintaining this environment to support the ever-increasing needs of our students and staff.
That's it. Anybody have any questions? It's, I just remember about when Kevin and Gary were on the board, sitting at that table over there and having this discussion about about some infrastructure and some purchasing of the wireless and all that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff that we did then transformed what we have now, and it's laid the foundation for us to really successfully integrate technology, use those resources effectively in the classroom. And it's not just hardware and software. We provide, I would say, I was trying to calculate this, thousands of hours of opportunities for staff to get professional development, not only on operationally how to use technology, but how instructional strategies of how to use that stuff and all those resources in the classroom. So I'm really excited to be able to share this, not only with you, but with my team in my department, who's put tireless amounts of work into really helping shape that. So, does anybody have any questions or?
Well, yeah.
What's that?
Yeah, I got questions. I got all kinds of questions. 4,500 service tickets. If you're averaging 20 a day, how do you maintain that with the level of staff that you have? I mean, that's a tremendous amount. Is there a certain amount of those that can be eradicated by investment in newer technology or investment in additional training and resources so that, you know, I'm sure some of the service tickets are, right, this isn't working right, and you get out there and you find out that it's maybe a training issue versus a, I mean, do you see a need out there for either upgrade in technology or upgrade in training or continual training?
Good question. The first thing that people always think is, like, if you put better things in place, you put more systems in place, you're going to have less calls. It's the exact opposite, actually, because we find that people use it more. Okay, and we're so intricately woven with technology in our district that the calls just will keep coming, and that's good. But the bottom line is, for us, is we have stabilized this infrastructure. We have, like, I think total of like 10 minutes of downtime this year entirely. Except for the power outage for 2 hours, but that doesn't count. We were talking about that. It's very, very minimal, but the fact is that I think more and more people are using it. So to answer your question, is there's a lot of tireless nights that we spend supporting these kinds of things. But bottom line for us is, yeah, we need additional resources within our department. We have grown exponentially over the past 4.5 years about just what we support. Not only what I teach teachers, because I do a lot of instructional practice in the classroom, but bottom line is I'm doing a lot of support of all these different resources that we have currently. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it's one of those, your department is probably one of the areas that I've watched the exponential growth and seen over the last 3 years that I've been here, how many strides you've taken to try to accomplish things. And I guess what I appreciate the most is your department's approach to technology. It's always about, how does this impact learning? How does this impact the teachers? What effect does this have in the classroom? I guess I really appreciate that perspective coming from a technology department, because I've seen some IT departments that are more backroom operations.
Well, we
kept in
need
a shell.
we need to keep Matt in that role too, with professional development with our staff, administrative staff and teaching staff. And so if he's called away to troubleshoot issues with a system, that's taking away time that he can be having a more direct impact in the classroom. So the purpose of tonight's presentation was to kind of give you a big picture view of where we've been and where we're headed, and to see it actually in the classroom with pictures. I think that was a really powerful presentation that Matt put together, because you can see the impact in the classrooms. We're going to continue to come forward and talk about what resources do we have. Do we need to reallocate resources? Where do we need to prioritize things? And this is tied in really closely with our strategic plan and the 21st century learning goals and instructional technology goals that we have. So I know Lori and Matt have been working very closely together too with the other committee members in those areas. So you're going to hear, this isn't the last you're going to hear about, you're going to hear more.
I think it's also important that, I know this probably isn't the main focus, but it attracts people who want to be employed by the Baraboo School District. You know, over and over again during the interview processes, the candidates are asking us, you know, what do you have available? Not only the hardware or the infrastructure, the pieces you can't see, but the support staffing and the different opportunities of professional development that's out there for them. And I think that's where we've been able to attract the brand new graduates that are really highly qualified and very competent in coming to our district.
I want to reinforce what Sean mentioned, that technology is not a thing, it's not an it. And that what you have done, Matt, is in your department made it part of a living system within the educational environment of what we're trying to accomplish. I watch my little ones manage the technology. I'm more interested also in understanding how we integrate the curriculum from a teaching standpoint, so that at 24/7 available to the students, they can access and work in their time. You know,
And that's one of our action steps of our 21st century work.
Absolutely. But I think you've laid the groundwork for that, and that perception is critical. You know, the technology is not stuff, it's what the stuff can do for education.
We will have this on our website, but we would like to share it first with our staff when we come together on January 20th for our Professional Development Day. And then we'll have it on our website.
I had the opportunity to have a webinar that I watched the other day, and it was regarding technology in schools. And one of the things they stated, there was a couple things that I found very interesting, but one they stated is that in their planning on costs, they said to really be successful, that 30% of their cost was in professional development. We always think of the hardware and the software and so forth, but the development of the staff, so that they say, here, you've got this tool, and some will jump and go with it, but then some say, I don't know what to do with this thing. And I found that very impressive, that, you know, we really have to understand that the dedication that we need to have for our staff to be able to say, we're going to be here to assist you so that you're able to use these tools. The second thing I found very interesting is sometimes we think that technology is, you know, the cost points are, you know, out of grasp. But one of the things that you and I have been involved with our legislatures with broadband, and you know, the price points on a lot of things are dropping. So we don't necessarily have to have a laptop and everything, but you know, even this device, the costs on it's dropping like a rock, and so that we're able to maybe have every child at some point with something so that they can be interacting with the materials.
Just to kind of, on your professional development piece, I think it's always been part of the big picture is that we just don't hand stuff out.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, here you go, figure it out, you know?
Yeah.
It's, again, operationally, how do you use it? It's just got to work, for one. It's got to be transparent. Else it'll get dust on the shelf. I guarantee it will. But not just operationally, but how do you, with some instructional strategies now, how to use this stuff, these things in the classroom.
Well, and I
so
think
they impact.
especially with differentiated learning,
Right.
you know, the opportunity to be able to create, as Lori's, you know, working toward various modules of curriculum that would support exactly what we've talked about earlier with gifted and talented.
Absolutely. We've had discussions, Julie and I. And secondly, on your devices, yeah, the devices are getting smaller, less expensive, and more powerful.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the resources are getting so that we can, they can be available at a pretty reasonable cost. And we're always doing research. I mean, Mary has a Chromebook. You know, that could be, if we're going to do Google Docs, it is a great solution for a possible one-to-one. It's super affordable. It's Wi-Fi, has great battery life. So yeah, we're doing that groundwork to see what is going to be effective for our students.
Mm-hmm.
So it's exciting.
With the integration of the smart boards and the recording mics and the cameras, I mean, is there a push, is there a desire to have class presentations that are recorded and accessible, so if a student misses it or doesn't get it, they can just go back online and rewatch the class or rehear the class. I just think that there'd be a lot of validity to that.
There is, and sometimes I think it's the apprehension to put yourself out there like that. I'm not sure. I've had conversations, I've shown people, because all these devices we have here, we have cameras, we have smartboards, we have microphones, you can do it all right from your fingertips, you know?
Right, and it's accessible anywhere, whether you're homesick, whether you're on vacation. For
Well,
some
we do
reason.
have to be somewhat cautious about that in terms of student confidentiality and opening up. It's one thing for the student to see the teacher, it's another to open up everything in the classroom to all parents or anybody who could view it. So, you know, we need to move slowly in that. We need to move more slowly than you would like us to, Sean, in that area, but.
Technology slowly, the yin and the yang.
Just keep telling people, yeah, just to get used to it, it's just changing so rapidly, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just part of what it's gonna be, you know? So, anyway.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Everything's getting smaller, but I can't see anything.
Brings us to a portion of the agenda under personnel recommendations. I am not aware of any approval of resignations for the board to deal with tonight, or new hires, or postings. We do, however, have the agendized item for the approval of a long-term sub at Al Bierman Elementary for a kindergarten position, and the recommendation is for Susan Eldred Kajawa. Entertaining motion for that.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Vidro, seconded by Meering. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to the working session portion of the agenda. I would like to entertain the repositioning of A, B, and C. I'd like to have C become A slide down to B, and B slide down to C, out of courtesy to Ms. Scott, who's going to present on the space rental recommendation.
Thank you for moving that on the agenda. I apologize, I have to go and pick up my son. Have some family issues going on with my dad, who was currently in hospice care, so we're trying to juggle all of the family responsibilities. So I think the Building and Grounds Committee met last week and approved this, but essentially what we would like to do, currently we have two off-site programs, one operating at the Civic Center as well as one operating at the public library. And through a combination of those two programs, during the course of a year, serve approximately between 20 and 30 students through those two programs combined. What we would like to do or propose is to actually rent a room at the Civic Center and combine those two programs into one location. Right now, the one program is using the classroom space out of Boys and Girls Club, but we're finding that, with limited technology access and things like that, and student confidentiality issues, we think it would be beneficial not only to the students but to the staff as well, to combine those two programs, and that way we would have two staff members available to serve the students in that program. So that would be our recommendation if the board would consider approving that.
In terms of.
We pay rent at the library?
No.
We do not pay rent at the library currently.
How many students are you servicing at the library? It's not really a large number, is it?
I think right now Ms. Kelly has approximately
Close to 20.
20, I was gonna say.
But she's not doing them all at one time.
No, what she does is she services students in either a 90-minute or a 2-hour block, and she has groups of students that come in at one time. So she might serve anywhere, but she might have a single student and upward to 4 students. She's very conscientious about grouping her students and keeping that at a low staff-student ratio so she can meet the needs of those
Okay,
students.
so most of the students that are really being serviced as far as a number, are already in the Civic Center?
It's two different programs.
Yeah.
We do have some students that cross over into both programs, so they might work with Miss Kelly in the morning and then go to the Civic Center in the afternoon, but that's not for every student.
Okay.
And then we have some students that are just with Mr. Porter at the Civic Center in the afternoon, but not serviced by Miss Kelly in the morning. So.
Okay.
There's also a safety consideration having two adults on site with students, and some students who are maybe a little more challenging, and that's the reason why they're receiving programming off-site. It's not something we initiated. We were approached by the city when the driver's license facility decided to move to another location. We looked at that original space within there, but then Mr. Hardy also showed us other space available in the building. So the space that we're looking at is actually less than what the Building, Grounds, and Transportation Committee talked about. We're looking at a space that's just over 1,000 square feet, has nice locked storage, has, with the lease, heat, air conditioning, water, internet, custodial services. All of it is built into the cost of $631 per month. So it would be our recommendation to try it through the remainder of the year, see how it goes, come back and talk to the board again about the potential of entering into a school year lease.
Mm-hmm.
But we think it will really benefit the students in both programs to have that, that space available. It's on the 3rd floor at the Civic Center.
Move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
For sticking with us tonight. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so that brings us to what was A, which is the WASB, WASD A, and WASBO Delegate Assembly resolutions. Mr. Meering.
Okay. The only correction I would, is that is not WASDA and WASBO, but it's just Wisconsin Association School Board Delegate Resolution. The board may wish to consider the following resolution be resolved. Board of Education to authorize its delegate or / alternate to the 2012 Wisconsin Association of School Board Delegate Assembly to vote in favor of the resolutions 1201 through 1216 for the report to the membership, and authorize the delegate and vote in the best interest of the Baraboo school districts if amendments or other resolutions come before the delegate assembly. I make that motion.
Second.
Motioned by Mr. Meering, seconded by Mr. Cummings. Is there any discussion? For clarification, the motion would also delegate Mr. Meering as the delegate to vote at the assembly. Hearing none, those in favor of the motion as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to the youth options course request.
I did forward that to you. It was a philosophy course. It was not advertised at the time or made available to the student, so the student wrote a letter directly to the board making that request that she begin that class through youth options, probably in the next week or so, second semester here.
I move to let it happen.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of the motion as presented to authorize the youth options course as requested signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried. Brings us to the agenda item executive closed session. I would entertain a motion to go into executive closed session as per statutes listed on the agenda.
I'll move.
What is this first? Borkhagen and Cummings. Continue with roll call. Mr. Borkhagen.
Aye.
Cummings.
Aye.
McNevin.
Aye.
Meering.
Aye.
Mortimer. Pedro. Bodak. Aye.